Hey everyone, and welcome back to Recent Releases. Now, the reason I'm doing a review of Dead Man's Wire instead of 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple is I haven't seen the other 28 days, weeks, years later movies. So I didn't feel it would be fair for me to go into The Bone Temple cold and give a review when I don't have the context of the other movies. So please bear with me. I'm sorry about that. Maybe some of you really wanted me to talk about that one because that's the big release this weekend. But instead, I have a review of another movie, Dead Man's Wire. And so the plot of Dead Man's Wire is about it's based on the true story of Tony Kuritzis in Indianapolis in 1977. He kidnapped someone from a loan office because he felt he was screwed out of this deal that would netted him a good amount of money and that he was owed and that he had worked really hard to make this deal happen, but the loan office kind of pushed it in a way he feels that made it look in a negative light towards him. So he wants compensation, and he kidnaps this guy by shotgun to his head, and he attaches what's called a dead man's wire, where it's attached to the trigger of the gun, and if you get pushed or pulled or you move too quickly, the gun will go off. And so the gun is pointed at the poor hostage throughout a good portion of the movie, and it shows kind of how they handled the situation. Like, it is interesting how law enforcement handled it, how the media was portraying Kuritzis, and the subsequent fixation. Like, oh, he's like, there are some people who think that Kuritzis he's a hero for standing up against the corrupt system, and then there are some that are just like, can you just let the poor guy go? So it also has that element of it too. When I went into this, I thought it was just going to be, I didn't know it was based on a true story, but when I saw it, I was like, all right, this is going to be another, the Negotiator or John Q, something in that vein, where it's, someone gets screwed by the system and they're desperate and they take, someone or a group of people hostage, and that's going to be that. And that's what I thought until it said based on a true story, and I was like, oh, okay, so this really happened. I'm like, okay. And throughout the movie, it even does show photos of the actual event and some of the older footage, like the original footage. So there's definitely a lot of showing how it really unfolded, from how the guy got kidnapped to how they sort of traveled to another destination where then they were held up for the rest of the kidnapping, and how law enforcement handled it, how the media covers it, all of those bases. And I won't spoil it too much because this is a pretty good movie. And it was directed by Gus Van Sant, who he's done Good Will Hunting and Milk, so he knows how to make a good movie, and especially movies based on real events. He does a really good job here. The cast also is excellent here. Bill Skarsgård plays Tony Kuritzis, and he does a fantastic job playing this guy. And it's kind of nice to see him step out of horror a little bit and do something a bit more grounded. So it's nice to see him in that kind of a light. And then you have other people like Cary Elwes, who is unrecognizable in this, DeColman Domingo, just a whole host of really talented people to bring this interesting story to life. And obviously, at the end it goes into the aftermath and what happened and after the fact of this kidnapping. And it's handled pretty solidly, I think. It's one of those where since I went into this pretty cold, I didn't know where it was going, and it was interesting certain parts of like how the situation was handled by law enforcement and by the media. Like, that was interesting to see. You also see the dynamic between Kuritzis and the guy he's kidnapped, and the subsequent struggle he's getting to, or the subsequent struggle of trying to get all his demands met by law enforcement and lawyers. It makes for a very good viewing experience, and it's tense at times, it's even kind of funny at times, and it's overall just a really decent movie that you should check out. If I had any criticisms to the movie, they're pretty small. One of them is there are some edits made in the movie where they will show pictures of the actual event as it's happening in the movie. So like it'll show like people running away from the building because he has the shotgun on this guy, and then it'll just show a picture of the people who ran away. And then there's other parts where maybe you see a picture of what Kuritzis looks like amidst of us watching Bill Skarsgård give his performance. And that was a little distracting. It doesn't happen too much, but I'd rather they just would have filmed it. I'm all for showing like photographs and older footage at the end of the movie, which they ultimately do with movies like this where they show what it actually looked like, how some of it played out. Like, that's fine. But in the middle of the action, it did break the pacing a little bit, I thought. And it just felt a little out of place. But maybe that's just me. But that's really it, honestly. Again, this is a solid film. You should go check it out in the theater if you can. If not, it's perfectly good for a streaming movie. Had those little weird edits hadn't been in the movie that kind of broke the pacing for me, this movie would have a higher grade. But as it is, this is a solid A- for me. I had a good time with this movie. And yeah, I highly recommend it. So, alright, thank you all for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.